Okay, very good. Well, we're here. Hi, everyone. So I'm Joe Jimenez, and I'm the president of the board of the Windermere Oaks Water Supply Corporation, and I'm here with George Burriss, our plant manager, water company manager. And we wanted to talk about a few things that are going on with our system and let our members know about things that are happening. Of course, we are going to put this up on a YouTube link in coming days. We are recording it and we'll post it to where we have some other YouTube videos. And so we are excited about using this new format to help all of our members, wherever they are, to learn a little bit more about our water company system and some things that we are working through with regards to possible expansion or additional members, or just to work through the application process of different developers, and to give everybody a fair chance at getting information that they need to know. So I see that there's one more person in the waiting room. Let me do that. Oops, wrong button. There we go. Okay, so George, thanks for being here with me today, and hopefully our video is coming through okay. The agenda had a number of different items on here that we could talk about, and I think we had this summer we worked on an interconnection between our facility and Ridge Harbor with Quartz Utilities. So I'm just wondering if you could fill us in on what that was all about. We probably have some people who are joining for the first time and don't even know what that was about and why we did it. So maybe if you could update what we did.
With the emphasis on the drought and water conservation and the attempt for utilities to be resilient and have backups in all areas of the operation. Providing an interconnection between two systems is a very desirable feature. Unfortunately, for most systems, they're so far apart that that's not an option. In our case here, we're right next door to Ridge Harbor, and consequently, installing an interconnection between the systems was very doable. And when actually Ridge Harbor had come to us in past months wanting an interconnection on the wastewater side. So that gave us an opportunity to expand that conversation to talk about an interconnection on the water side as well. And everyone realized that was a good thing to do. And since the utilities share a common boundary, then that was a workable thing to put in place. And golly, within just a few months of that conversation, we were able to actually make that happen. And it's complete and in place.
Now that's a that's what, how many inches was it?
It's just a 2-inch line, but it is more than adequate for what we're doing. We're not talking about having one system supply all the needs of the other system. We're talking about an emergency condition when perhaps there's a large leak, or for example, during the Uri episode, many times both systems had situations where they had broken water mains and their pressure was reduced. You see, had we had this interconnection in place then, one system could have sort of taken up the slack for our neighbor and no one would have been affected by it.
Okay. So it stands as a kind of emergency backup system to pressurize both systems if one
That's right.
has a significant leak or the pumps are down or what have you.
That's right.
Now, have we used this interconnection?
We've tested it.
Okay.
And we've used it in situations where we changed out some pumps here in the plant. So during the hour or so we were doing that, it was useful to have that backup in standby mode, and we actually allowed some water to come through. This is a valve that is on the border between the two systems, and there are valves on both sides, so we can control that flow and the circumstances under which we might need it or use it.
Okay. So just, for all our members, I mean, valves might be on each side of a pipe, and you can close, one or the other to cut off flow. Just when we say valve off, say part of our community, we are, or section of pipe, we're doing so to, conserve water. We were doing a lot of that during the Uri storm. I think we had to valve off a section of our community while a significant leak was located, so that it didn't drain all the water out of our system.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So where are we with the interconnection? Any additional updates that you have?
We're just dotting the I's and crossing the T's. We're providing documentation to TCEQ. They want to know exactly how this was installed and circumstances under which it will be used. They want a record of everything. And Corix and I have been working together to provide the information that TCEQ wants. We did all the homework, but TCEQ, as just a point of information, they won't accept anything except as submitted by our professional registered engineer. So all of that's been forwarded to the engineer, and he's now working with TCEQ to supply whatever it is they need.
So the main thing that the TCEQ is interested in, if I'm hearing this right, is they give us latitude to make these decisions, right? Especially if it's a emergency or or if we feel like it's necessary, and then we can go back in and fill in the dots and then make any corrections that they request. Is that pretty much right? Or?
Well, the backdrop is here that they encourage this sort of thing.
Okay.
But it happens very seldom, just because of the circumstances between systems.
Yeah.
In our case, we notified TCEQ at the outset that we were talking about this, and they were all for it, and they told us sort of how to proceed. And now we will demonstrate to them that we completed this according to their plan.
Okay. Well, that sounds great. Any other updates for our members or?
Not about the interconnection.
Okay,
We're good.
All right, good. So what's our next topic? I don't have the agenda in front of me.
Let's talk about the tank for a little bit.
Okay, so the storage tank. And let me kind of set the stage.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess about 2 years ago, we started putting plans in place to price out the tanks, price out the steel. Then we got some loan money in place through CoBank, and we got very good rates at about 3.25%-ish for some 20-year loan from CoBank to buy this new tank. And so we've been working for a number of months. I know that anybody who's been following the water company knows that we had hoped that we would have the tank, installed and up and ready in February. And we, even earlier than that, I think even November, December, we were trying to get plans to have that all installed. And then we had, as everybody has heard, there's all kinds of shortages out there. There's workforce shortages, there are supply shortages, et cetera. And so it really wasn't until, I don't know, what, April or so, April, May, that we got the...
actually completed it in June.
Yeah, so they started building in April and May, and then we got it completed in June. I mean, here we are in October. So these things just take a little longer, obviously, than what we expected, which is fine. We have been dealing very well with our capacity needs, and now we have two 125,000 gallon tanks sitting right next to each other, and we have the new tank, and then the old tank we're going to take and convert that in the coming year or so to a clarifier system to keep up with system needs for our clarifier. So that's the backdrop. We've been talking about this in board meetings for about the last 2.5 years. And so now we're kind of at the phase where we have it installed, and we're just moving through new processes, which is what George is going to give us an update about.
Mainly what we're doing now is cleaning the tank and disinfecting it to make sure that everything is exactly right before we put it in service. And while we're cleaning it, there are some other things we need to do. We're installing sensors on the tank, electronic sensors that monitor and communicate with our control computer the level in the tank, so that the computer maintains the same level in the tank all the time. At the same time, the engineers working with TCQ doing essentially the same thing with the tank that he's also doing with the interconnection, and dealing with the folks in the plan review division to make sure that everything is documented appropriately. Also, in the meantime, the COREX compliance officer is performing the calculations of how water moves through the tank. And the primary concern is the disinfection levels that are required to maintain our water in compliance under all circumstances. And once he completes that, that tells the operators how to set the set points in our computer control system that maintains those disinfection levels. And once those 3 steps are completed, then our tank is ready to put into service. Once we have this disinfection protocol spelled out, and then we begin taking lab samples to prove that the result is as anticipated. And as soon as we get those lab reports that prove up the effectiveness of our disinfection protocol, then we'll put the plant in service.
Okay. 125,000 gallons is a lot of capacity. How much does one single house, or what's kind of our daily average for household usage? 200 gallons, 300?
Well, 100? What's important is the TCQ rule says we need 200 gallons of storage per connection.
Okay.
So we have a few connections short of 300. So 200 gallons would be 60,000 gallons. So we are a little more than double our required capacity for water storage.
So we have 125,000 gallon storage, and the TCEQ requires that we have 60,000.
Right.
So we have 60,000 excess capacity,
Correct.
according to TCEQ.
Right.
That's tremendous. That's good to know.
And that's where we are with the tank. Now, it's taken us forever. You know, I talked to several tank companies before we actually made a decision. The tank company we hired to do this has one of the best reputations in the state. They told us last August, not this past August, but August of 2021, that they could deliver this tank in 16 weeks. That would have been Thanksgiving, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out they delivered this tank the last week of May 2022.
Yeah.
Through really no fault of their own. Problems getting steel was the main thing. And unbelievably, everyone is so busy. I mean, there is so much work going on everywhere that we just couldn't get to it.
Yeah. And probably our small size, that they have other jobs that are bigger that they
wouldn't admit that.
Yeah.
I cornered them at every opportunity.
Yeah.
On the floor of the AWW convention in San Antonio, much to their embarrassment, but they just had so much work, like everyone.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I think another issue that we have is some pumps. We've been working through some pump maintenance issues, and hopefully you can set the stage a little bit for us by how many pumps we have, how we utilize them, what we have for backup, anything that you could kind of set the stage before you go into our maintenance.
Well, the pumps we're talking about are the main pumps that pressurize their system. These are the pumps that take water out of our storage tank and then pump it out into the distribution system. So those are the pumps that maintain the system pressure that everyone deals with every day in their homes. These pumps were installed originally, and when this plant was completed in 2008, and there are two of them, 25 horsepower each, and these are variable speed pumps. Conventional pumps come on, they pump up the pressure to a given level, they shut off, and then the pressure slowly drains down to the cut-on point for that pump. So they're always cutting on and off. Our pumps are variable speed pumps. They run all the time. So if the demand out of the system increases, they simply spin faster. They ramp up a little bit to maintain this constant pressure. Hope everyone will pardon my allergies. I hope they can understand what we're saying. But that means these pumps run all the time. Not 24 hours a day, we cycle them. One pump will run for 6 hours, it cycles off, and the next pump runs for 6 hours, and so on. But still, the pumps were both installed at the same time in 2008, and consequently, they have almost identical run times in terms of cumulative total hours. So one of them started dripping a little water here last fall due to the seal in the pump failing. That normally is a function of bearing wear and a tiny vibration in the shaft of the pump damages the seal and it starts to leak. Well, our options at that point were to take the pump out of service and rebuild it, replace the seal, replace all the bearings. We could have done that, but number one, it cost almost as much to rebuild it as to replace the entire unit. And if we were to go do the rebuild approach, we would still have a motor that was 15 years old.
Yeah.
So we chose to replace it. And while we were planning that job, it occurred to us that this was the time to install some of the latest technology water meters on our pump. They're way more accurate, but to install them, we'd have to reconfigure the piping from the pump that connects it to the water main. So it was a logical time to do all of that at once.
Sure.
Which was what we did. And even before we finished the installation of that replacement, the other pump started leaking.
No.
So that's turned out to be a major project, kind of like the tank. We thought the tank would take 16 weeks. It took, 45 weeks.
Yeah.
We thought the pump replacement would take maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and it turns out it's 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
So
these are 14-year-old pumps, basically, that are kind of.
They are exactly 14, 15 years old.
We've gotten pretty good use out of them, would you say?
Really?
Yeah.
A lot of that has to do with there being variable speed applications rather than starting and stopping. You know, the greatest wear occurs in the first few minutes of startup. So these pumps don't have that.
That start and stop, like they're continually running just at higher and lower speeds. Yeah. Okay.
So we've finally finished this pump reconfiguration, meter replacement. All that we lack there is the meter technician coming and calibrating these meters and getting those signals wired into our SCADA, our computer control program. But that'll happen here in the next couple of weeks.
So all in all, what we're doing is trying to just get better control of the plant facilities through additional sensors and additional meters, so that we just have more control of what's produced and sent out.
Well, you know, the technology has changed, and the circumstances changed. When we built this plant, there were 150 connections. Now there are 300. So we're always looking to improve every time we have these projects.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on the pump maintenance?
Nope. I think that does the pump job.
All right. And then what else are we?
Well, now that we have completed the pump and meter project, we can turn to the zebra mussel project.
So let me give a little background real quick on the zebra mussel problem in the Lower Colorado, in the Lake Travis. We just have these little mussel things that grow up, and they jam into our pipes, and they get on rocks and anything solid. And so for several years now, we've been looking at every type of solution that's out there. George has been doing a lot of research as to what they've been doing on the Great Lakes. It's a big problem up there. And as the problem has moved into Lake Travis, of course, we've got to figure out ways to lessen the impact of these zebra mussels on our system. And we've been working on this for several years now. George has done a tremendous amount of research on several different options for us, and in past past presentations to the community, we've talked about all of the different approvals that we've gotten from the state agencies to work forward with some of the solutions that George has researched and put in place. So now we're at the, you know, I don't want to say we're at the final, but we're at a pretty good stage for finishing all the work that has been started in the last few years. I can see that somebody else is joining. I'm just going to hit admit. Okay, so George, tell us about, give a much better rundown than that.
Well, that's good. You know, it's taken a while just to assemble, given the supply chain challenges that we have with all our projects. It exists with the zebra mussel project also. So we've been using this time while we were working on the tank and the pumps and the meters to assemble all the material and equipment we need in order to install these strainers that we're going to deploy to remove the zebra mussels from the water. And that's where we are. We're now ready to turn to installing these strainers out on the barge.
Okay.
Expect that to take a couple months.
Okay. So I think, just for instance, just for our members' sake, I mean, one of the things that we did, or George and his team did, and I showed in the annual meeting presentation, was that they had put some filters in other places in our chain, in our distribution system, and they took those filters out, and they just within a few hours, I think, of running them, they were just filthy, and we could get an idea.
They were here in the plant.
They had it here in the plant, yeah. And so these filters, and we've talked about this before, but the filters that we're going to be installing are actually going to be on the barge itself, on the pumping barge itself. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. If we just needed to remove the zebra mussels here at the plant, that would be an easy challenge to overcome. Our problem is we have 1,000 feet of transmission pipe between the plant and the raw water intake barge. If those lines get clogged by zebra mussels, then that's an enormous problem.
Yeah.
You know, there's no good way to clean those pipes.
And so, just for our members' sake, I mean, one of the issues with zebra mussels is that it's like your arteries. I think everybody's familiar with the idea of plaque buildup inside of, you know, your arteries for your heart muscle. And if we are having to suck the water from the pump up through these, you know, pipes that are getting congested, that puts more strain on our pumps. And George just talked about, you know, our pumps at the plant, our distribution pumps, but there are other pumps out in the barge that, you know, they are strained as well for pushing the water up into the system if they have to go through those zebra mussels. Is that?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we have 4 pumps down at the barge, and you know, I think we have the same situation with them where, you know, one of them might fail at one point. We have to do some replacement work or those types of things. How are those pumps doing?
Doing well.
Okay. Good. Okay. Anything else that we need to go over, or anything else?
That covers our 4 big projects.
4 big projects. Yeah, those have been ongoing and lots of, you know, incremental progress, and so that's I think it's been really well for our members for these projects to move forward. So, all right.
Well, always our challenge is money.
Yeah.
You know, the city of Austin is spending $4 or $5 million to address these zebra mussel issues. You know, those are numbers that we can't even relate to.
Right. Okay, we've got some breaks along the way where some of the technology has decreased in price for the zebra mussel issue, so that's been fortunate. George has done a great job of researching options that we could, that were much less than originally anticipated. So that's been very beneficial to our overall cost structure. And so thank you, George, on that.
Sure, you bet.
Okay. So the second part of our agenda was to talk to a gentleman who is on the line with us, Mr. Gabe Smith. And Mr. Smith, I'm going to take you off of mute if I can find.
Can you hear me now?
Let's see here. Are you on mute, or say hello?
Hey, yeah. Hi, how are you?
Okay. Great, I can hear you. Super.
All right, good deal.
All right. So, Mr. Smith, thank you for being with us today.
Sure.
We really appreciate it. And we haven't really talked before, and so I just appreciate the work that you all do at the LCRA. And if you could tell us a little bit about your your title there and how you relate to Windermere Oaks Water Supply Corporation, I think that would be a great start.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Can y'all hear me fairly well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
great.
we're good.
So I talked to George a little bit about this, and he asked that I come in and present something. So if you don't mind, if I take over control and share my screen in a minute, what I'd like to do is just start off with like a broad overview of who LCRA is, and then filter down all the way specifically to your contract, and then talk a little bit about your contract, kind of what you've used over the last couple of years and how LCRA relates with Windermere Oaks. So
Okay, that's super.
Great. Well, I'm going to go ahead and, let me see if I can find the.
Okay, we are viewing Gabe Smith's screen, so that's good.
Great. Okay. So this is a map that we have at LCRA on lcra.org. And let me see, control. Okay. And it has several toggles. You can kind of scroll through it and get all sorts of LCRA features. But what I'm going to do here is just kind of highlight, this is the watershed of LCRA. So this is the area where tributaries, streams, and creeks all flow into the Colorado River and feed the waters of the Colorado River. I'm going to have to get. And as you can see, there, as you get closer and closer, there's many, many different little veins that come in and eventually feed the Colorado River. So that's our watershed area. But then if you want to, let me take off the watershed, talk about specifically the LCRA statutory area. So this is the area that the state of Texas has tasked LCRA to manage. Basically, they want us to prevent massive flooding events that happen, and we've done so by structuring in a system of dams. These dams hold flood waters. Let me scroll a little bit more on this. And those impounded waters that LCRA has created, then we used to sell that water to communities for municipal purposes or industrial purposes, irrigation purposes. Let me go through each one of these dam systems real quickly. So this is the Highland Lake system. We've got Buchanan Dam, which makes up Lake Buchanan. Inks Dam makes up Inks Lake. Wirtz Dam, which makes up Lake LBJ. Lake Marble Fall, or I'm sorry, Starkey Dam, which makes up Lake Marble Falls. Then you move downstream quite a bit, and you've got Mansfield Dam. This creates all of Lake Travis. And for reference, you're right in this area right here. Okay. So you're a fairly good distance ahead of the dam itself. Then our last dam that we currently have in operation is Tom Miller Dam. Here's our office is actually right here, but this creates Lake Austin. Now, down south in Wharton County, we're creating a new reservoir that's going to be coming online, we hope, maybe 23, 24. So in maybe 2 years worth of time. And it is going to, I want to say it is going to be like right here, right by Lane City. And what we're going to do is when there's major rain events, we can capture some of that water, pull it aside, hold it in that reservoir, and then we're going to start meeting our lower basin demands. We have a lot of industrial customers in this area with that new reservoir. That will allow us to start using more of the water in the Highland Lakes for Highland Lake purposes. That way, so if we have an industrial customer who calls on some water, instead of releasing it all the way from Mansfield Dam and letting it flow down, we can use Arbuckle and supply those customers with that water. Let's see if I can.
And you said that that's going to come online 2023 or 2024?
Late 23, mid 24 is what we're hoping right now. You know, we're working with some challenges on it right now, but yeah, we're hoping for that right now.
Great.
I want to, let me pause sharing on this for a second. Let me see if I can find my other. Can y'all see this picture right here? This PDF?
Right now, we're still seeing the map.
Are you? Okay, let me see if I can. Here we go. How about this?
Still the map.
Okay, I'm going to stop share completely and then I'll reshare.
There we go.
Yay. Okay. So this is the area. This is your area. This is your backyard, basically. Here's Windermere Oaks. And what I wanted to do with this, I got our maps group to just provide me with a simple map that shows your area and other LCRA customers that are in your area. We've got the Sunshine Camp across the river, which is a really small contract they've got. We've got Corex at Ridge Harbor right here, which obviously y'all are very familiar with. Zoom in, see if I can zoom in. We've got Barton Creek Lakeside Irrigation and a couple of contracts associated with Barton Creek Resort over in this area. Travis County ID #1. This is a new development, which again, I'm sure y'all are familiar with. It's going to be coming online fairly soon. They already have a contract with us. So this is going to be coming online soon. And here's an applicant. They haven't yet got their contract, but they submitted an application. I know, George, you probably talked with them a little bit, but this is BB3 Spicewood. It's going to be a new development in this area, and they're looking for water as well. So we're going through the contract application process with them. They haven't got a contract yet. So as you can see, your area is really starting to grow quite a bit. And there's quite a few customers in not alone just in this area, but when you get larger view of Lake Travis, a lot of customers up and down Lake Travis. I'm going to see if I can. Do y'all see this contract administration plan?
Yes, sir, we do.
Great. So when we meet with customers, we typically pull the sheet out. This is just kind of like a general information sheet that talks about your contract specifically. We've got your contract, and this is the official contract number for it. The effective date of this contract that you're entered into started in 2012, and it goes all the way to 2052. I looked in our computerized system. I've been with LCRA since 2013, but I looked in our computerized system, and it looked like the only occurrence of another contract with Windermere Oaks was in 2006 to 2012. George, do you know if that was the first contract Windermere had with LCRA?
There were prior contracts.
Were there? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. This is the one we're operating by now. This one gives you 59 acre feet of water. It's what we call your maximum annual quantity. Basically, 1 acre foot of water is approximately 325,000 gallons. So I think that broken out gives you about 19,225,000 gallons of water that Windermere has under contract. Each year they can take that much of water out of Lake Travis. In it, we've got just basic contact information. I know y'all work with Tommy a lot. He manages your system. We always work with George on anything coming up. But this is a really interesting part right here. So what this graph shows is what Windermere Oaks usage has been since the start of this contract. And George and I have talked about this a little bit. So when y'all originally entered into this contract, this was a partial year, but this was a representative of what y'all were using. But it looks like around 2017, y'all got substantial growth going on in your area. Maybe new connections. George, this probably relates to that 150 connections, now up to 300 connections. Probably started filtering in here. So as you can see, you started getting real close to the amount of water you have under contract. That happened for 3 years. And then in 2020, it looks like y'all went slightly over your contracted amount of water. And George, took some, and it might have been system issues too that y'all were having with repairs at the time. Last year, not too bad. And this year, it looks like it's probably going to be about 2021. What this map does show, though, is that with increased growth in your area, it's probably getting really, really close to time where Windermere, and George and I have already talked about this a little bit, but it's getting close to time where Windermere needs to consider coming in and amending their contract and getting new water supplies under contract. So that way you can meet the future needs, the future growth that happens in your community.
So can I stop you just for a second?
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Just a quick question because, okay, so in 2020, 2021, George implemented some, and with the LCRA grant, some conservation projects. And I think that they along with a wet 2021 helped us, dramatically reduce our usage. And we're at, I don't know when this water use cut off for 2022. I mean, we're obviously not, we've got a few months to go yet, but do you have any projection as to what our usage might be this year?
So this was cut off for, let's see, I guess it was September. This shows September's use in here. So I wouldn't, I mean, y'all are doing outstanding with the conservation measures that y'all put in place at this period of time. That shows you what a good job y'all have done on this. I suspect this is probably going to be maybe slightly less than the 48 acre feet, and quite honestly, how you manage the system, whether you need to increase this contracted amount or you want to stick with that because you think your conservation practices are doing you good. Absolutely. However you want to go about it. But it looks like 2022, you're going to be and it was a dry year, a really dry year. It looks like you're going to probably come in slightly less than 2021. So that shows you how good those measures that George implemented for conservation took hold. That's exactly what we want to see when we give out those grants for conservation projects. This is, showcase right here. This is wonderful.
Do you have any other grants that we can apply for?
We've always got our grant program going. So I'm not over that. Our conservation staff is, but George, if you're ever interested again in doing that, and I know you probably already know the people in the conservation staff, but I'd be more than happy to create the connection with that and get y'all some more funds if there's other projects you've got going on. Absolutely.
Super. Thank you.
We talk frequently with Sandy about new projects.
Yeah, great. Okay. And then kind of when we get down below here, this is just basic information. We've got the meter that we bill water from. And every year we have a calibration. We have the customer provide a third-party calibration to check how accurate your meter is operating. It's got to be within certain specifications. Every year, Windermere's is great. Tommy's the one that I usually contact about this. Always gets it. Your calibrations are always good. The next one's coming up in April. We talk about billing provisions. Now, 95% of our customers are under these billing provisions. There's some contracts from the 80s that have a slightly different one. They all pay the same rates. It's just how they pay and when they pay are different. Basically, whenever we get water meter information from you, we bill you based on that. And then we bill you on reservation water. What reservation water is when you enter into your contract, say for 59 acre feet, if you don't plan to use any water out of that, and you don't for the first year, we're going to charge you a certain amount to hold that water in what we call reservation. What it's saying is we've got that water under contract. We can't contract that out to anybody else. But for holding that water, there's a slight fee that we charge you for that. Then as you use water, we'll charge you what's called the water use charge for any billed water. And inverted block, there's a small, it's twice the charge of a water use fee for each acre foot when you exceed your MAQ. So say like in this year, you went over about 10 acre feet. That 10 acre feet were charged at a slightly higher rate than the water use rate of the water down here. And then we go into every contract that we've got with a municipal customer has what we call a water conservation plan. And it's basically guidelines on what the customer, Windermere Oaks, plans to do to save water, kind of like what you did with your projects. When you're looking at the community, is there any education you can provide to the community? Rate systems are a great way to promote conservation, in that as they use more water, water becomes more expensive. So you've got a whole plan that lists out your conservation approaches. And you also have a plan in your contract that states what you're going to do when we hit drought stages. Right now we're in stage 1 of drought. And so what your rule for this is twice a week watering, no more than twice a week watering. And then every stage, as we get deeper and deeper into debt, there's different triggers that Windermere would take to start conserving water. But overall, this is your water conservation plan. Everything's looking good. The general manager has some decisions to make about your contract, how much water you have under contract. The community, I know with BB3 coming online right next door to y'all, they've been talking with y'all a little bit. So LCRA is always open to modify your contract to fit what you need. And we absolutely want you to have your long-term water supply in hand, so you don't ever hit a point where water may not be available to contract for and you need more water. That would be the nightmare scenario. And I don't think we're ever going to, hopefully, knock on wood, we won't ever get to a situation like that. But that's always something you need to think about with a water supply contract that you have for a 40-year term. You want to make sure you have enough water resources to meet your future demands. Okay. But that's really all I have, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any questions.
One of my board members told me that you all might be changing your contract structures in some way in coming weeks. Is that?
Yeah, that's correct? Right. So we do have a rule change. I think, and going through it, I think the primary rule change that's going to affect you right now is going to be water conservation and drought plan changes. And in that, the biggest impact is going to be a water conservation rule where we're making it mandatory. Anybody who comes in for a new contract, this doesn't affect grandfathered contracts, but when they come in for a new contract, we are going to require that they implement no more than twice a week watering. It's said that 90% of water uses goes towards irrigation. And with the drought spells that we get here, we want our customers to limit irrigation to a certain extent. We want everybody to have green yards and a wonderful lawn, but we're really wanting to implement some different standards on how people irrigate their lawn.
Okay. How does the LCRA, and look, these are obviously just questions that are coming to mind, and I would love to have a future conversation with anyone from LCRA who could spend a few minutes with us about these matters, in case you're not the right subject matter expert. So right. Take all these questions with a grain of salt. We can always reconvene.
Yeah, absolutely.
How does, what you said about the Wharton project is very reassuring to us Lake Travis residents who like to have a lake.
Yeah,
how is LCRA? I don't know the right way to phrase this, but obviously all of Austin and all of this region is experiencing tremendous amount of growth. Mm-hmm. And just how does LCRA play a part in that? I mean, when we got down as low as 624 a few years ago, or what I think that was close out in the area in 2013-14. Boy, I mean, I could walk across the lake in our area. I mean, it was a 50-yard wide, waist deep creek.
Yeah.
And so, I think there's a lot of concern in our community about the growth of the region and the ability of Lake Travis to keep up with that. And so I don't know if you have any thoughts on that from LCRA.
Yeah, and that is a challenge. So LCRA can't dictate that anybody should not build along the lake. We all know that that's a hot spot for development now. Tasked by the state of Texas to supply water to whoever applies for it and it meets the requirements, we're bound to work with those customers. Now, that being said, we do modeling and we project that we have what's called firm water. You've got a firm water contract. Where down in the lower basin, the irrigators, they've got interruptible contracts. Their contracts can be, water to them is interruptible. It can be broken. Did we hit time limit or anything? Okay. In interruptible water, we can turn that water off to them. Firm, we don't turn it off to you. And what firm water is saying is that we can supply your contracted amount of water under a drought of record. And right now, our drought of record was 2011. We've never experienced drought worse than that. Before that, it was the 1950s. It was the decade in the 1950s. But 2011 overcame that as our drought of record. So what our modeling shows is we have the supplies to meet your demands for another drought of record like we saw in 2011. Now, that being said, you're right. It gets really shallow in the lake where you're at. And we're starting to get out of my wheelhouse a little bit. But we would have to get the operations group to comment on this. But yeah, as water flows, if in periods of significant drought, we would have to work with customers on how we make releases upstream of you to get you water so you can capture it as it flows downstream. Kind of like what we do with customers downstream when we release from Mansfield Dam. There's a slug of water that goes down to them. They catch it as it comes by and they pull it. I imagine it would get to be something like that if we got to a drought worse than what we had in 2011. But again, that's going to go to the modelers and our river operations group to determine that. But they definitely have plans about how they would approach those kind of situations. And again, that being said, we've got a firm water allotment of 500,000 acre feet of water. We've currently contracted about 450 thereabout 1,000 acre feet. So we do have a little inventory left to contract with. That's why it's important that customers like Windermere Oaks come in and make sure that they have enough water under contract for the long term. But in terms of development, there's some people that are putting up developments in scary areas, and there's not much LCRA can do about that.
Like what? What do you all consider scary areas?
Well, and I'm not going to say this that's the LCRA's official position of scary,
yeah.
But let me stop sharing. I want to go back to that map if I could.
Okay. You're not considering our area scary?
No. But here and maybe scary is not the good word. It's all manageable. It's just how we do manage it.
Sure.
So here we go. Here's the start of Lake Travis right here at Starkey Dam. People building in this area, that's a concern because that's the first area of drought. When drought happens, water starts receding this way. That's a concerning area. LCRA always reviews applications, checks into information. If we have concerns with the applicant about where they're at, we tell them our concerns and we reiterate our concerns in a contract. We want them to know that that's a sensitive area, and if they're going to build there, they need to plan for a time when there might not be significant water flow in that, and they have enough to hold water for several days until we can get water to them, or until the situation.
So that's a storage issue for them. Is that how?
Well, it could be. Yeah, it could be a storage issue. It could be conjunctive use. It could be, using groundwater along with your surface. In periods of drought, if this recedes, It makes a question of what the groundwater wells would be like, but that's to the engineers to decide how they would need to plan for that community, knowing that they're in a vulnerable spot.
I see. Okay. Okay. George, do you have any?
No, that's great.
Look, this is very good information, and I appreciate your spending some time with us. We don't have any board members other than myself on this call, and we're, as I explained, or George explained, we're going to put this on our YouTube channel for folks to take a look at, and we might have some additional follow-up questions from our members or our board members in coming weeks and months. So hopefully you might join us again, or somebody else area might join us again.
Absolutely. And you know, if questions come up that need answers in the immediate future, send those to me. You know, George, you can get those to me, and I can get you the answers you need. And in your next meetings, if y'all have specific concerns and we want to get a river operations expert in here or something like that, let me know what y'all would need to do, and we can get the expert in here to talk to you about whatever, you know, issues y'all have on your plate.
Okay, that sounds great. I really y'all's weather fellow Bob Rose, really does a great job. You know, I think better than anybody else for, you know, my purposes. Yeah. Which is whether I'm a golf or, you know, do something else for the weekend.
He can break our hearts sometimes, and he really, you know, gives us some optimism at other times, like with these rains that we're getting today. So yeah, Bob's a great guy.
Well, and I think that y'all called it right in 2018 with, you know, I don't know if it was luck or not about how low the lake had gotten before that flood in October 2018, but you know, it seems to me like y'all were pretty spot on with how you know, with that whole management exercise. I know that was a big challenge.
You know, it's feast or famine, flood or drought. It's a challenge managing it, but the system that LCRA has created works well, you know, to hold those flood waters and preserve waters for us in times of drought. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time, and we may come back to you at some future date. I hope we will, because this was very informative, and I'd like for more of our members to know.
You got it. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gabe.
Okay, and with that, I think we're just going to conclude this call. That was I think an informative call, and we will form this up and shoot it out to our members, and we appreciate all who joined us this afternoon for a quick hour of information about our water system. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a good day.